Thanks for staying with us. You're welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. At the top of the program, we promise to turn our attention to African Union's plan to deploy artificial intelligence in an effort at finding an enduring solution to insecurity, facilitate conflict resolution, and enhance democratic process, leadership selection, and good governance on the continent. In this direction, AU recently put together a 9-man advisory group to lead discussions around this, with Executive Director of YAG Africa, Samson Itodo, making that select group, apparently for his blossoming advocacy in election monitoring and interrogation of the democratic process all over Africa. For a quick chat around all of that, we're now being joined by Baba Yusuf, a chartered IT professional under the Royal Charter of the British Computer Society and fellow of the Institute of Analysts and Programmers of the United Kingdom, with diverse expertise and experience in ICT governance, geographical information systems, and remote sensing systems integration and crisis management. Good morning, Malam Baba. Good to have you join us on the morning show today.
It's good to be here, Mr. Steve Adesua and Kachi.
Hello.
Thank you for having
Good morning.
me.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. All right, let's talk about the good news coming from the African Union and the fact that our own Samson Itodo has been selected among the 9 wise men that will lead discussion on how AI can be deployed in Africa. Matters of security, matters of integration, matters of democracy. So 2 questions, Baba. One will be, what are your thoughts? How welcoming is this development from the AU? And what are the expectations, given the fact that everybody is talking AI, but then what is the infrastructure in Africa that we have at this point to deploy? Or are we going to rely on the West yet again, to get, things sorted and done in Africa? What are your thoughts and what are the expectations?
Thank you very much for that very wonderful question. It's a welcome development. Mr. Itodo, one of us, like you said, is part of the team. And of course, it's a reality we have to face. I've written about this extensively in the past couple of years. It appears Africa is always playing catch-up. But then, as the saying goes, it's better late than never. To contextualize this conversation, Steve, it's good for us to go back and ask ourselves, how did we get here? This particular milestone is a takeout of, a commissioning of the Continental Artificial Intelligence Strategy for Africa by the AU, which was commissioned last year, with a strategic objective, to be pivotal to the achievement of the aspirations of Africa Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm quoting, rightly from the notes so that we can dimension the issues. You've already mentioned the key points, but if we go back and look at the key focus areas for the delivery of this mandate, contextualizing this to today's conversation, because it's a very wide, strategy blueprint. Objective number 11 says democratic values, practices, and principles of best practices in politics, and then capable and institutional framework for leadership to be in place, and peace, security, and stability, for Africa, and then the national strategies for artificial intelligence for the respective AU, member states. It's a tall order, if you ask me, but then even though we are going to play catch up, it's the time to start now. Coming back to the other question you asked, which is very germane to this conversation, Steve, is how ready is Africa? And to understand where we are placed, recall in January when President Trump was sworn in. On that very day, or rather within 24 hours, President Trump has secured over $500 billion, for AI infrastructure in the United States of America. Currently, I think today they are wrapping up the annual legislative session, strategy session for China, chaired by President Xi Jinping, to review the 2025 strategy, and one of the policy direction, interestingly, what they call AI plus, which is a takeout of their 14th, I repeat, 14th 5-year strategic blueprint. India has already done its own AI strategy starting from 2018. So this is where we are, in terms of conceptualization of the strategy. We have an implementation plan of 5 years, but suffice it to say, the critical issues are infrastructure, the political will, and before the political will, what structures we have, the political structures, and the governance framework that will enable achievement of this strategic objective at a time where fragmentation is the order of the day, across the world. But specifically in the case of Africa, strife and conflict, across the Sahel, in the Eastern Africa, specifically in DRC. We see what is happening in Sudan. We see the fragmentation of ECOWAS with the latest president of Guinea-Bissau threatening to pull out, where we want to have a unified approach, to this strategy, as it should be, with regards to the continental, aspirations or initiatives. So we have a lot of work to do, and I don't envy the likes of Mr. Itodo, in trying to ensure they play the advisory role, but more importantly than anything, are the leaders of the states of Africa, of the countries of Africa that are going to manage and marshal artificial intelligence to deliver good governance to the over 1.2 billion people for the continent, where we have issues of even how well are they actually practicing the democracy or applying good governance framework to the betterment of the people 60 years or less after independence. We are still grappling with clean drinking water. We are grappling with good elections, education, and security. But then it's a good step forward. We look forward to implementation. As the saying goes, the taste of the pudding is in the eating.
That's a very good point. The taste of the pudding is in the eating. Now, part of some of the points that were made during that ordinary session in Accra, Ghana, was emphasizing an Africa-centric development-focused approach to AI to promote ethical, responsible, and equitable practices. Now, what we know about artificial intelligence is the fact that it could be defined as a double-edged sword. On one hand, it could be used for good. On the other hand, it could also be used for things that are not so good. How do you project ethical practices being maintained to ensure that, just like, we see the US's Project Maven, we see what's going on in Ukraine as well with the use of AI. How can we make sure that as Africans, we're using it for good, AI for good?
Well, it will go back to the governance framework that will be put in place by the AU itself. Of course, there's a governance framework in place already. They call it governance and regulatory framework. But how the respective countries, Kachi, key in their strategy to the overarching continental strategy is the first step in the right direction. And how they are able to address the concerns of the regulatory frameworks, especially when we already have the critical infrastructural deficit, and then we have the issues of data integrity, whereas the crucial data that will be used to populate, the framework of AI are actually data that we are always going to rely on the West or the Far East to give us, to leverage. So generating our own, homegrown crucial data that has the integrity, because we see a lot of trying to, put face value on our data, rather than looking at realities and using the real critical data. And that is where we have issues, and we have to lean on sometimes the data that are coming from people that may not like the data to be in line with our current realities for their own, strategic objectives. So those are very crucial for us in trying to put in place a system that will actually work, not to put something that at the end of the day will have to go back and lean on the superpowers or on the Western world to do it right. So regulation is very crucial, but then how are you as respective countries able to build it? Interestingly, Nigeria already have a national artificial intelligence strategy that was formulated, by NIDA, and we have an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, the National Artificial Intelligence Center. They've already built the framework. But then, as I said earlier, how we are able to execute regulations. If we use Nigeria as a model, most of the times, the bane of development of African countries, including Nigeria, is not formulation of policies or strategies or regulations. You will agree with me, it is the execution, it is the implementation of those regulations that will enable achievement wholesome of those objectives. So very crucial globally, we have the ethical issues. It's a global concern, but I believe it will be addressed on the continental and global platforms.
Thank you. Now, sometimes people have pushed back, particularly the Nigerian public has pushed back on the Minister Bosu Tijani's focus on AI, saying that we have other critical issues. We have infrastructure issues. We don't have constant electricity, that, Nigeria is not yet there. Do you disagree with this? And I'd like you to explain why, because I've also been very interested in artificial intelligence. And also, can you tell us a bit about how artificial intelligence can impact on elections? We have deepfake, we have videos. There's a lot of low trust in society. And so what role artificial intelligence can play in shaping our elections and our politics going further?
Well, I have my legs at this sword, thank you for that question, standing on both sides of the divide. As a proponent of good governance and as an advocate of doing the right things, I believe we should not lose focus of the foundational, the foundations and the critical pillars for success, while we are putting our focus on the futuristic aspect of our development. I believe AI has come to stay, whether we like it or not. We must plug in. But while we are plugging it, is the power source steady? Is it sustainable? So that we don't end up, out of the loop. So I agree. Infrastructural deficit, is a reality. Everybody knows that. But do we have synced up lockstep at Desua, a national development strategy that has links or interlinks with these critical pillars for success? If infrastructure, for example, in terms of energy, in terms of intermodal transportation, and even the bedrock of data, for telcos and all that are issues which are linked to energy as well. If we have issues there, then Minister Bosun Tijani will still be struggling with achieving his own objectives. So the dependencies and interdependencies are crucial to achieving the objectives. So I hope we'll have what we call policy coherence, in trying to achieve these seemingly disparate strategic objectives by the crucial players like digital technology, like energy and all that. But that being said, we need to face that reality and prepare for it, because if we don't hedge against that, what we are seeing in terms of insecurity and food insecurity in Nigeria or in the continent of Africa will still happen. And it will be more devastating, Adesua, if we allow AI to evolve without us playing catching up fast, because it's evolving so fast that we need to do the needful. The crucial critical infrastructure is important. You still need the people to have 2 square meals at least, to be able to be secure and to be able to do the basic things of creating value in food production, for them to have education, for them to even be able to key into the AI, platform. So Africa, Nigeria, we cannot lose focus of where we are coming from and trying to key into where people are already moving ahead. So I totally agree with you, but then we cannot say because of that we'll not have focus on AI, but policy coherence, interlinks in trying to achieve the objective, and then looking at the overarching African, strategy with regards to AI, and indeed in every other thing like trade and investment, are very crucial to our success as a continent and as individual countries.
All right, Baba, if you were a consultant, hypothetically speaking, what specific 1 or 2 suggestions will you like to equip Samson Itodo with as he commences, this assignment with the AU committee? I'm asking that given the fact that the unit within the AU Commission that this committee will be reporting to is also headed by a Nigerian. and it's important to,
Yes.
to take advantage of the sort of opportunities that might be available here. How, at the end of the day, how Samson Itodo himself will be useful, within the strategic framework of the AI that the Nigerian government, has in place, beyond the beautiful work that he has done in election monitoring and good governance. That's one. And then secondly, so that you can take the two together, a lot of people are slightly concerned about why everything, just like Adesua said, why everything is going AI all over the place, in this age. Beyond being a buzzword, and of course, that by next year, it will be 70 years. People think that AI as a concept started like yesterday or day before yesterday, but it will be 70 years next year, 2026, since I think it was Professor John McCarthy, who first used that expression in 1956. So beyond the buzzword, beyond Alexa, beyond Siri, that we call on, from time to time, how can AI truly be deployed in the sort of quest that AU is looking at to counter terrorism and to assist in fighting insurgency and wars and security and things like that? Given what we have at the moment in Sudan, given what we have around the Congo, given what we have in the Sahel, almost a quarter of West Africa has been taken over by military coups. How can AI work? Is it AI that we need at this point, really?
Thank you very much. My quick feedback about Mr. Itodo is he is a veteran in the space where he has been appointed to operate to ensure we institutionalize, proper democratic processes and frameworks of good governance. My advice is that as he has been, he should remain the same, very objective and pointedly, and he should speak up. Why? Because, Steve, we can have all the talk shops like we always have. The critical success factor for this initiative, like every other initiative in this context, are the presidents, prime ministers, and junta leaders of Africa. If the political will is not there, indeed, even if the vision is not right, all this will end up on the shelves of the AU, library. And that is going to be very sad because we are today, we cannot afford to fail going forward. The picture you painted in the last couple of seconds is the reality, and things are going worse. You talked about the juntas in the Sahel, but don't forget the Islamics, the terrorists, have already taken over even before the juntas. So we have multidimensional issues. And the talking point within the strategic framework is to continue calling upon the leaders to recognize that they have a role to play. Because it is AI doesn't mean it is something in the virtual reality. We need the human beings that are leading these countries to do the right thing, to do the needful before we even get to the AI. We are playing catch-up because people have consistently failed to deliver their mandates, truncating democracies, and where we have democracies, people are not able to deliver. So it's very important to continue speaking to the leaders that they have crucial role to play to enable this. With regards to the AI and how we are bringing regional or continental peace, it is very important for us to understand that the technology is moving fast. And as it is moving fast, whether it is time for reconnaissance and surveillance, whether it is in terms of remote sensing to ensure that we are able to be proactive, against the insurgents or the terrorists, activating the action points to be reactive for the military or the police to do the needful on time are the crucial success factors. So like you rightly say, it's not just about AI as a buzzword. Where are we? Because 30 years ago, some of these countries have already gone beyond where we are today. So like I said earlier, we should not lose sight of where we are in terms of our realities. We are faced with insecurity across the continent. How have we leveraged the existing technologies to be proactive in quelling potential crises or risks, rather than allowing them to have an, even when they happen, our national databases across Africa have not been up to par or synchronized across board and used and utilized for national development and national security. Then we are having AI coming. The risk has escalated beyond any other region in the world. So that is the watchword. While we are looking at AI, how are you able to utilize the resources we already have in terms of technology to achieve our objective, to contain risk and to deal with the dangers we are facing? So if we don't do that, and that goes to political will also, if we are not able to harness what we have now, AI will be more difficult for us to harness because it is more illusionary and it is more virtual than any other technology we have. And it's moving faster than anything. So we need to face that reality and not just following buzzwords around the world while we are forgetting that our door is open behind us.
Absolutely. Now, you've said so much about what the priorities are and what needs to be focused on. Now, going back to this 9-member advisory group for the AU, what would you say in a summary are the priorities that they need to focus on in their AI deployment plan? Because it's a plan to deploy artificial intelligence. So in terms of priorities today and now, what would you say are the top priorities as we summarize this conversation?
Is to look at the strategy document yet again and streamline it to our realities and remove or isolate, advise that we immediately remove those things that may not be practical to our realities. I know they have tried as much as possible to domesticate it, but I have wrote the document there are areas that they need to deal with. For example, the implementation plan. I don't see how the linkages are with regards to crucial critical infrastructure. That is very key. And then if we are talking about a unified strategy, where are we with regards to the AU leaders trying to bring peace in DRC, in Sudan, in the Sahel, for example? What are we doing to ensure that we are moving in one direction as a continent, where fragmentation is happening all over the place? So those are the conversations we'll have to have. You must have peace, Kachi, before you can have these things in place. You must have relative stability in terms of the well-being of our citizens across the countries in the continent for us to be able to have anything on the table. Look at what is happening in Sudan. Look at what is happening in DRC, for example, or in other parts. And even where there are no wars or battles, the socio-economic, headwinds in those countries, are supposed to be addressed within the context of trying to achieve AI, because without them, they are consequential to the achievement of AI. AI cannot happen in the air, and of course the democratic forces. Sorry, I didn't answer your question with regards to elections and all that. As an example of execution of policies, if we look at the 2023 elections, how did we actually effectively deploy or utilize the IRF, for example, which was already there? And then, interestingly, we saw what happened in Ghana. So it will remain a buzzword, like Steve said, unless we face those realities and we stop being hypocritical about things, talking about hypocrisy of our expectations.
Yeah.
We want to be there in AI, but the foundations are not there for us to put the pillars to achieve the success.
That's
so
important.
It's very crucial to be conscious of where we are and to be deliberate in trying to achieve those objectives. Otherwise, we'll just be a mouthful, and then we are lagging behind as time goes on.
Which we do not want, Mr. Baba Yusuf. Thank you so much for joining us on the morning show. Thank you so much for being here.